Welcome back. April 6th, Flowers for Algernon, paragraph 50. I beat Algernon. I didn't even know I beat him until Bert the tester told me. Then the second time I lost because I got so excited I fell off the chair before I finished. But after that, I beat him 8 more times. I must be getting smart to beat a smart mouse like Algernon, but I don't feel smarter. I wanted to race Algernon some more in paragraph 51, but Bert said, that's enough for one day. They let me hold him for a minute. He's not so bad. He's soft like a ball of cotton. He blinks, and when he opens his eyes, they're black and pink on the edges. If you could, just take a moment. We've got a little bit of imagery here. Notice that we get to feel him for a moment, right? He's soft like a ball of cotton, right? So we get a simile for that. And he blinks and he opens his eyes. They're black and pink on the edges. So we get some imagery too. I said I can feed him because I felt bad to beat him and I wanted to be nice and make friends. Bert said, no, Algernon is a very special mouse with an operation like mine. And he was the first of all the animals to stay smart so long. He told me Algernon is so smart that every day he has to solve a test to get his food. It's a thing like a lock on a door that changes every time Algernon goes in to eat. So he has to learn something new to get his food. That makes me sad because if he couldn't learn, he would be hungry. That is an important idea that he feels for Algernon, right? And that Algernon has to learn to survive. I don't think it's right to make you pass a test to eat. How would Dr. Niemer like it to have to pass a test every time he wants to eat? I think I'll be friends with Algernon. April 9th. Tonight after work, Miss Kinnian was at the laboratory. She looked like she was glad to see me, but scared. I told her, don't worry, Miss Kinnian. I'm not smart yet, and she laughed. She said, I have confidence in you, Charlie. The way you struggled so hard to read and write better than all the others. At worst, you will have it for a little while, and you're doing something for science. We're reading a very hard book. I never read such a hard book before. It's called Robinson Crusoe, about a man who gets marooned on a desert island. He's smart and figures out all kinds of things. Slide 46, paragraph 55. He can have a house and food, and he's a good swimmer, only I feel sorry because he's all alone and he has no friends. But I think there must be somebody else on the island because there's a picture with his funny umbrella looking at footprints. I hope he gets a friend and not be lonely. April 10th, paragraph 56. Miss Kinnian teaches me to spell better. She says, look at a word and close your eyes and say it over and over until you remember. I have lots of trouble with through, that you say through, and enough and tough, that you don't say anew and two. You got to say enough and tough. And that's how I used to write it before I started to get smart. I'm confused, but Miss Kinnian says there's no reason in spelling. April 14th. I finished Robinson Crusoe. I want to find out more about what happens to him, but Miss Kinnian says that's all there is. Why? Paragraph 57. Slide 49, paragraph 58. Miss Kinnian says I'm learning fast. She read some of the progress reports and she looked at me kind of funny. She says I'm a fine person and I'll show them all. I asked her why. She said, never mind, but I shouldn't feel bad if I find out that everybody isn't nice like I think. She said, for a person who God gave so little to, you've done more than a lot of people with brains they never even used. I said, all my friends are smart people, but we're good. They like me, and they never did anything that wasn't nice. Then she got something in her eye, and she had to run out to the ladies' room. April 16th, paragraph 59. Today I learned the comma. This is a comma, a period with the tail. Miss Kinnian says it's important because it makes writing better. She said somebody could lose a lot of money if a comma isn't in the right place, and I don't have any money, and I don't see how a comma keeps you from losing it. But she says everybody uses commas, so I'll use them too. April 17th. I used the comma wrong, paragraph 61. It's punctuation. Miss Kinnian told me to look up long words in the dictionary to learn to spell them. I said, what's the difference if you can read it anyway? And she said, it's part of your education. So now I'll look up all the words I'm not sure how to spell. It takes a long time to write that way, but I think I'm remembering. I only have to look up once, and after that, I get it right. Anyway, that's how come I got the word punctuation right. It's that way in the dictionary. Miss Kinnian says a period is punctuation too, and there are lots of other marks to learn. I told her I thought all the periods had to have tails, but she said, nope. 62. You got to mix them up, she showed me. How? To mix them up. And now I can mix up all kinds of punctuation in my writing. There are lots of rules to learn, but I'm getting them in my head. One thing I like about Dear Miss Kinnian, that's the way it goes in a business letter if I ever get into business, is she always gives me a reason when I ask. She's a genius. I wish I could be smart like her. Punctuation is fun. Paragraph 65. April 18th. What a dope I am. I didn't even understand what she was talking about. I read the grammar book last night and explains the whole thing. Then I saw it was the same way as Miss Kinnian was trying to tell me, but I didn't get it. I got up in the middle of the night, and the whole thing straightened out in my mind. Miss Kinnian said that the TV working in my sleep helped out. She said I reached a plateau, and that's like the flat top of a hill. After I figured out how punctuation worked, I read over all my old progress reports from the beginning. Boy, did I have crazy spelling and punctuation. I told Miss Kinnian I ought to go over the pages and fix all the mistakes, but she said, no, Charlie. Dr. Niemer wants them just as they are. That's why he let you keep them after they were copied or photostated to see your own progress. You're coming along fast, Charlie. That made me feel good. After the lesson, I went down and played with Algernon. We don't race anymore. Paragraph 69, April 20th. I feel sick inside. Not sick like a doctor, but inside my chest. It feels empty, like getting punched, and heartburn at the same time. I wasn't going to write about it, but I guess I got to because it's important. Today was the first time I ever stayed home from work. Last night, Joe Carp and Frank Riley invited me to a party. There were lots of girls and some men from the factory. I remembered how sick I got last time I drank too much, so I told Joe I didn't want anything to drink. He gave me a plain Coke instead. It tasted funny, but I thought it was just a bad taste in my mouth. We had a lot of fun for a while. Joe said I should dance with Ellen and she would teach me in the steps. I fell a few times and I couldn't understand why because no one else was dancing besides Ellen and me. And all the time I was tripping because somebody's foot was always sticking out. Slide 57, paragraph 73. Then when I got up, I saw the look on Joe's face and it gave me a funny feeling in my stomach. He's a scream, one of the girls said. Everybody was laughing. Frank said, I ain't laughed so much since we sent him off for the newspaper that night at Muggsy's and ditched him. Look at him. His face is red. He's blushing. Charlie's blushing. Hey, Ellen, what'd you do to Charlie? I never saw him act like that before. I didn't know what to do or where to turn. Everyone was looking at me and laughing, and I felt naked. I wanted to hide myself. I ran out into the street and I threw up. And then I walked home. It's a funny thing. I never knew that Joe and Frank and the others liked to have me around all the time to make fun of me. Now I know what it means. They say to pull a Charlie Gordon. I'm ashamed. Paragraph 81. Progress Report 11, April 21st. Still didn't go into the factory. I told Mrs. Flynn, my landlady, to call and tell Mr. Donegan I was sick. Mrs. Flynn looks at me very funny lately, like she's scared of me. I think it's a good thing about finding out how everybody laughs at me. I thought about it a lot. It's because I'm so dumb and I don't even know when I'm doing something dumb. People think that it's funny when a dumb person can't do things the same way they can. Anyway, now I know I'm getting smarter every day. I know punctuation and I can spell good. I like to look up all the hard words in the dictionary and remember them. I'm reading a lot now. Miss Kinnian says I read very fast. Sometimes I even understand what I'm reading about and it stays in my mind. There are times when I can close my eyes and think of a page and it all comes back like a picture. Besides history and geography and arithmetic, Miss Kinnian said I should start to learn a few foreign languages. Dr. Strauss gave me some more tapes to play while I sleep. I still don't understand how that conscious and unconscious mind works, but Dr. Strauss says not to worry yet. He asked me to promise that when I start learning college subjects next week, I wouldn't read any books on psychology, that is, until he gives me permission. I feel a lot better today, but I guess I'm still a little angry that all the time people were laughing and making fun of me because I wasn't so smart. When I become intelligent, like Dr. Strauss says, with 3 times my IQ of 68, then maybe I'll be like everyone else, and people will like me and be friendly. I'm not sure what IQ is. Dr. Niemer said it was something that measured how intelligent you were, like a scale in the drugstore weighs pounds. But Dr. Strauss had a big argument with him and said an IQ didn't weigh intelligence at all. He said an IQ showed how much intelligence you could get, like the numbers on the outside of a measuring cup. You still had to fill the cup up with stuff. Then, when I asked Bert, who gives me my intelligence tests and works with Algernon, he said that both of them were wrong, only I had to promise not to tell them that he said that. Bert says that the IQ measures a lot of different things, including some of the things you learned already, and it really isn't any good at all. So I still don't know what IQ is, except that mine is going to be over 200 soon. I didn't want to say anything, but I don't see how, if they don't know what it is or where it is, I don't see how they know how much of it you've got. Dr. Niemer says I have to take a Rorschach test tomorrow. I wonder what that is. Well, there's one right there. What do y'all see in that picture? Take a moment. What do you see in that Rorschach picture there? Good job. April 22nd. I found out what a Rorschach is. It's a test I took before the operation. The one with the ink blots on pieces of cardboard, the man who gave me the test was the same person. I was scared to death of those ink blots. I knew he was going to ask me to find the pictures, and I knew I wouldn't be able to. I was thinking to myself, if only there was some way of knowing what kind of pictures were hidden there. Maybe there weren't any pictures at all. Maybe it was just a trick to see if I was dumb enough to look for something that wasn't there. Just thinking about that made me sore at him, which is an old way of saying maybe angry at him. Slide 65, paragraph 92. All right, Charlie, he said, you've seen these cars before, remember? Of course I remember. The way I said it, he knew I was angry, and he looked surprised. Yes, of course. Now, I want to look at this one. What might this be? What do you see on this card? People see all sorts of things in the ink blots. Tell me what it might be for you, what it makes you think of. I was shocked. That wasn't what I expected him to say at all. You mean there are no pictures hidden in those ink blots? He frowned and took off his glasses. What? Pictures hidden in the ink blots. Last time you told me that everyone could see them, and you wanted me to find them too. He explained to me that the last time he had used almost the exact same words he was using now, and I didn't believe it. And I still have the suspicion that he misled me at the time just for the fun of it, unless I don't know anymore. Could I have been that feeble-minded? We went through the cards slowly. One of them looked like a pair of bats tugging at something. Another one looked like 2 men fencing with swords. I imagined all sorts of things. I guess I got carried away, but I didn't trust him anymore, and I kept turning them around, even looking on the back to see if there was anything there I was supposed to catch. While he was making his notes, I peeked out of the corner of my eye to read it, but it was all in code, and it looked like this. The object, presumably the object from the ink. The test still doesn't make any sense to me. It seems to me that anyone could make up lies about things that they didn't really see. How could he know I wasn't making a fool of him by mentioning things that I didn't really imagine? Maybe I'll understand it when Dr. Strauss let me read up on psychology. April 25th. I figured out a new way to line up the machines at the factory, and Mr. Donegan says it will save him $10,000 a year in labor and increase production. He gave me a $25 bonus. I wanted to take Joe Carp and Frank Riley out to lunch to celebrate, but Joe said he had to buy some things for his wife. And Frank said he was meeting his cousin for lunch. I guess it'll take a little time for them to get used to the changes in me. Everybody seems to be frightened of me. When I went over to Amos Borg and tapped him on the shoulder, he jumped up in the air. People don't talk to me much anymore or kid around the way they used to. It makes the job kind of lonely. Okay. We will be stopping at April 27th for today to see how things are progressing with Charlie.